Little Fox, How the Fox Found Cunning by GmaJ. This is the story of how the fox found cunning. You see, he wasn't always the cautious little red devil he is now. There was a time at the start of the world when he was as bold as brass and as silver as the full moon. He fancied himself as the best of all the animals, and although he was very beautiful, he was also vain, selfish, and proud. He would strut around the forest, showing himself off and saying what a fine, strong, intelligent, and handsome young fox he was. The other animals tried to live peacefully with the fox, but the prouder he became, the harder he was to live with. What those poor animals longed for was a chance to bring that lofty fox down to their level. But in those days, fights were done in a civilized manner, and the smart fox would not accept a challenge from anyone. He would just wave his beautiful silver tail and say, "I'm much too pretty to fight. Besides, I wouldn't want to hurt you." So the other animals suffered in silence until the fox's pride finally got the better of him. Now it happened one day that the fox was walking through the forest, thinking about how handsome and brave he was. But he wasn't concentrating on where he was walking, and suddenly fell off the path into a ditch. Well, he picked himself up and gave himself a shake. His beautiful silver coat was covered in dirt, and he had hurt his long, slender forepaw, not to mention his pride. But that was nothing compared to his humiliation, for there, sitting on a branch beside the path, was a little robin redbreast. As the beautiful dirty fox looked up, the poor little thing burst into laughter. It jumped up and down on its branch, twittering and chirping until the fox could stand it no longer. "What are you laughing at, bird?" The robin redbreast stopped laughing and hopped a little further up the tree just to be sure he was out of reach. "The fox, the mighty, brighty, dirty fox! How mighty you are, fox, standing in a ditch! Twit, twit! I happen to be searching for a new home. What would a bird know about the digging of an earth?" "I do know foxes look silly, silly covered in dirt. Twit, twit!" A bird calling me silly! Now I've heard it all. I'll have you know I'm the most intelligent animal of them all, and if you call me that again, I'll have you for breakfast. "Silly, silly fox, you could not catch me. Twit, twit!" "I happen to be the fastest animal of them all, even without wings, and if you're not careful, I might have to make an example of you." "Is that a challenge, my pretty dirty fox?" "I fight a robin? That's no fight. It wouldn't even be worth my while." "Ah, but fox, my brothers will fight. Twit, twit!" "Brothers, eh? And just how many brothers do you have, bird?" "I have 5 brothers, fox, for you to eat, if you can." "If I can? Why, if the fastest and strongest of all the animals could not beat 6 little birds in a fight, no one could. Very well, bird, I accept your challenge. Bring your brothers along if you want. We may as well make it a meal, but on one condition. We say no more about what happened here today." "Agreed. Yes, oh indeed. Tomorrow at the clearing, fox. Twit, twit!" And so it was done. The fox watched as the bird flew off to spread the news, and was pleased with himself for being so very clever. He had arranged an easy breakfast tomorrow, as well as saving his pride. He walked straight back to his home, his earth, which was a dug-out burrow underground, and he told his mate all about it, although he said nothing about why he had challenged the bird, as that did not seem important to him. His mate looked up as he finished, smiled sweetly at him, and went back to cleaning her beautiful moonlight-streaked tail. The proud, vain fox lay down beside her and went to sleep. That evening, news of the challenge spread far and wide. By the next morning, animals from miles around had gathered to watch the fight, although everyone thought it would be rather one-sided. The fox sat in the middle of the clearing, his silver coat shining in the sun. He had been up since well before dawn, cleaning and grooming, and was more beautiful and proud than he had ever been before. Finally, a hush came over the clearing, and there was a commotion to one side as a small wolf pack forced its way to the front of the crowd. One of the wolves came forward to stand before the fox, and there, perched on his head, was the robin. "What's this, then?" said the fox. "Are you ready to die, bird? And where is the rest of my breakfast?" "We are here," said the wolf, on whom the bird sat. The fox looked the wolf over and laughed in his face. "Well, either you have already eaten one of my opponents, and he is speaking to me from your stomach, or you are a very strange bird indeed." "No, no, no," cried the little robin, jumping up and down excitedly. "He is my brother fox. They are all my brothers. Twit, twit." The fox stared at him, wondering whether the coming fight had scared the poor little thing out of its wits. "Tell him, Dark Paw, tell," cried the little bird excitedly. "My little brother speaks the truth, fox. He found me wandering last winter, lost and wounded in a canyon, with an angry she-bear on my trail. He led me to safety, and I offered him brotherhood in return for his good deed, and swore an oath to protect him. What goes for one in the pack goes for all. Thus we are all his brothers." The fox stared at him, fear starting to replace the proud look on his face. "No, I didn't challenge you. That's not what I meant by brother." "But that is what you said, oh mighty brighty fox," tweeted the robin. "You challenged my brothers and I. Yes, yes. Who here doubts my brother?" The robin's words rang round the silent clearing. The challenge had suddenly become serious, and all eyes were on the fox. If no one opposed the challenge, it would begin. But everyone knew that it was the fox's pride that had led him into this trouble, and he had no choice now but to face the consequences. "What's the matter, fox?" Darkpaw said. "Are you afraid of a fight? You, who are the best and strongest of all the animals?" "Certainly not, but—" "Then fight! Or run, fox, and keep on running, as fast as your pretty little legs will carry you. Run, fox, run now." And as the wolves leapt across the clearing towards him, the poor beautiful fox turned tail and ran. He ran through the silent animals crowded around the clearing, past his mate, through the forest, past his earth, and he kept on running. He ran over hills and under bushes, through streams and around mountains. He tried everything he could to lose the wolves, or indeed just to stay alive. But they were always just behind him, and if he got far enough away to rest for a moment, the robin would fly overhead, calling for him to run, run, always run. And so he ran. He ran for days, weeks, months. He ran to the four corners of the world and halfway to the moon and back, always with the wolf pack close on his heels. He ran until he no longer cared how long he ran for, if only he could stop. Now it came to pass that finally, inevitably, the wolves cornered him. Running through a mountain range, he turned around a corner to find a dead end before him. The sides of the cliffs reached high into the brilliant blue sky. The wall in front of him hid nothing but a few cracks barely big enough for his head, and so he turned to face the wolves. "So, Fox, you have given us a good chase, and we thank you. But now the challenge will finally end." Dark Paw moved forward, and the tired, dirty fox stood waiting for him. But as he saw the wolf leap towards him, he found he could not give up and started moving. He jumped up and backwards, hearing the wolf's sharp teeth snap on thin air behind him. Darkpaw growled his rage and leapt again, but the fox was no longer there. He had squeezed himself through a crack in the rock wall into a cave and was running once more. A long, angry howl sounded out behind him. "Run, Fox, it is not over yet." And the fox did run. He discovered there were things underground in the caves that did not care about challenges or honour or beauty. So he kept on running and running until he lost himself in the labyrinth of caves in the middle of the earth. He ran for days, weeks, months, until he couldn't remember a time when there had been light, fresh air and freedom, and when dark things weren't chasing him. And he ran on until finally he came to the centre of the world. There, in an immense cavern filled with a vast lake of molten lava, the fox stopped once more. He stood where he was for a moment, but it was too hot and he couldn't breathe. Turning around, he went to go back the way he'd come, but there, crawling towards him, were the underground creatures. So he turned again, running alongside the burning lake until he became desperate. His fur felt like it was on fire, and his once silver coat was glowing red. There seemed to be no escape this time until finally he glanced up and saw a small hole high above his head, and he leapt and clawed and squeezed his way through and up and started running once more. And he ran up and up towards the surface. He ran for days, weeks, months, until he finally reached it. And there in a cave filled with silver moonlight, the fox began to hope. His senses were filled with light, air, freedom, and he ran to the entrance of the cave, ready to rush out into the night. And then he stopped. And he listened and smelled and sensed, and finally crept cautiously out and ran under the nearest low bush. Then he covered himself carefully with leaves, dirt, and mud, and he slept. When he awoke, he listened and smelled and sensed, and when he was satisfied that there was no danger, he crept and crawled and listened and hid, and finally, one day, the fox came home. When he entered his old earth, his mate looked up and was frightened by the strange creature she saw. The once beautiful fox was small and thin, his coat short and thick, its colour a dark burnt red-orange, except under his chin, down his chest, and the very tip of his tail. But when he had told her his story, she saw that it was truly him, and buried her beautiful silver muzzle in his short red fur and cried. Then she told him about the wolves. They had come to her after he had disappeared into the cave, and said if the fox ever came home, they would take up the challenge once more and end it once and for all. So the fox and his mate left their earth and dug a smaller, safer one at the very edge of the forest. And the fox taught his mate stealth and cunning, cautiousness and wisdom, and they lived in peace for some time. But eventually The wolves found out that the fox had returned, and they came to find him. They stood before the entrance to his new earth, and Dark Paw cried out, "Fox, we have followed you to the ends of the earth to finish what you started. Now we have followed you here. If you don't give up now, we will hunt you and your family for as long as it takes to wipe you out. You will be running for the rest of your lives, so you had better come out and finish it now. What do you say, Fox?" But the fox and his mate were gone. The wolves dug up the earth and found the secret exit, and when they realized they had been tricked, they howled their rage to the sky, and the quiet, clever fox smiled at his mate in their new secret home. And so the years passed, and the fox and his mate had many cubs. But they weren't beautiful, proud silver foxes. They were small, red, cunning ones, and they prospered by their cunning until gradually the other animals forgot that they had ever been different, except the wolves. They taught their children to hate foxes, and both they and their descendants, the dogs, have hunted them ever since. The end. This story was written for my own little cubs, Andrew and Jacob. I hope you enjoyed it. With love from Grandma J.